Televisa presenta.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Live History, the podcast where we explore the great civilizations that mark our history. Today, we are going to travel thousands of years back to talk about Mesopotamia, known as the cradle of civilization. I am Christina, and I am joined by an incredible group of friends and experts.
That's right, Christina. Hello everyone, I'm George, and alongside you, we have four exceptional guests. We will help you understand why Mesopotamia was so important. Let's start by introducing them. Elizabeth and Eastern specializing in ancient cultures.
Also joining us is Daira, an archaeologist with experience in excavations in the Middle East.
Hello, it's a pleasure to be here. Mesopotamia is like a box of surprises. You always find something new.
And of course, we have Dorothy, our expert in mythology and religions.
Hi, I'm ready to talk about the gods, myths, and epic stories of this civilization.
Finally, Jorge and I will be leading this conversation, learning and providing interesting facts. So, without further ado, let's get started.
The story of writing, astronomy, and law. The story of civilization itself begins in one place. Not Egypt, not Greece, not Rome, but Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia is an exceedingly fertile plain situated between the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers. For 5 millennia, this small strip of land situated in what is today Iraq, Kuwait, and Syria fostered innovations that would change the world forever. Inhabited for nearly 12,000 years, Mesopotamia's stable climate, rich soil, and steady supply of fresh water made it ideal for agriculture to develop and thrive.
Elizabeth, let's start with you. What exactly is Mesopotamia and why is it so important in history?
Mesopotamia, as its name suggests, means land bathed with rivers in Greek. The cause is was located bathed with the trigens and rains when Aaron, the king, abused a regions that today corresponds to Iraq and parts of Syria and Turkey. This was the place where they fish city within Saint James and Lewis that defendants one Opel live to her emergency.
Is it true that the featured city in the work was built there?
That are regions Jorge Uruk is considered the fish great city in history at its peak. It had up to 5 millones de inhabitants, which was young for its time.
What made it so special?
It was a cultural and economic center. in as temples, markets, and administrative centers that control trade and tanks.
And let's not forget the ziggurats, those impressive stepped structures that served as temples. In Uruk, there was one dedicated to Inanna, the goddess of love and war.
How interesting, Dorothy. Saint Inanna was mentioned. That role did the gods play in the daily lives of the Mesopotamians?
The gods were everything. Each city had a protector god. Furthermore, they believed that the gods controlled essential things, such as crops, rain, and their wars. If something bad happened, they thought it because they had injured the gods.
How did they communicate with them?
Through rituals, sacrifice, and the construction of temples. They also used divination. They read animal livers or patterns in water to interpret the divine will.
About 6,000 years ago, seemingly overnight, some of these agricultural settlements blossomed into some of the world's first cities. In the period between 4000 and 3100 BC, Mesopotamia was dotted with a constellation of competing city-states. At one point, they were unified under the Akkadian Empire and then broke apart, forming the empires of Assyria and Babylon. Despite near constant warfare, innovation and development thrived in ancient Mesopotamia. They built on a monumental scale, from palaces to ziggurats. Mammoth temples served as ritual locations to commune with the gods. They also developed advanced mathematics, including a base 60 system that created a 60-second minute, a 60-minute hour, and a 360-degree circular angle. The Babylonians used their sophisticated system of mathematics to map and study the sky. They divided one Earth year into 12 periods. Each was named after the most prominent constellations in the heavens, a tradition later adopted by the Greeks to create the zodiac. They also divided the week into 7 days, naming each after their 7 gods embodied by the 7 observable planets in the sky. But perhaps the most impactful innovation to come out of Mesopotamia is literacy. What began as simple pictures scrawled onto wet clay to keep track of goods and wealth developed into a sophisticated writing system by the year 3200 BC. This writing system would come to be called cuneiform in modern times and proved so flexible that, over the span of 3,000 years, it would be adapted for over a dozen different major languages and countless uses.
Let's talk about how ordinary people lived. Daira, with your background in archaeology, what do you know about their lives?
We know a lot thanks to clay tablets. For example, trade was vital. They exchanged the products such as metals, wood, and textiles. As for the houses, they were made of adobe. The humblest ones were small and simple, while the houses of rich were larger and had interior patios.
What did they eat?
Mainly, it would be like barley and wheat, also dates, fish, and meat on special occasions. They even had beer, which was a very common drink.
That sounds quite advanced for their time.
Including recording the law of the Babylonian king Hammurabi, which formed the basis of a standardized justice system. But Mesopotamia's success became its undoing. Babylon, in particular, proved too rich a state to resist outside envy. In 539 BC, the Persian king Cyrus conquered Babylon and sealed his control over the entirety of Mesopotamia. For centuries, this area became a territory of foreign empires. Eventually, Mesopotamia would fade, like its kings, into the mist of history, and its cities would sink beneath the sands of Iraq. But its ideas would prevail in literacy, law, math, astronomy, and the gift of civilization itself.
Elizabeth, you mentioned that they invented writing. Tell us more.
They created cuneiform writing, which began as simple drawings for record keeping. Over time it evolved to represent sounds and words, allowing them to write laws, contracts, and literature.
In addition, grading allowed them to better organize their cities. For example, the Hammurabi Code, one of the first sets of laws, was written on tablets so that everyone knew the rules.
Any memorable laws?
Through rituals, sacrifice, and the constitutions of temples. They also use divination. They read animal livers or patterns in water to interpret the divine will.
Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization. There are several places around the world that have been dubbed cradles of civilization. These areas of the world are where humans first settled. It's where they said goodbye to their nomadic hunter-gatherer lifestyles in favor of agriculture and permanent settlements. And many of these first villages and cities are still around today, providing a visceral connection between human past and human present. However, of all the different cradles of civilization around the world, perhaps no other is as important and influential to the development of human civilization as Mesopotamia. Literally translated from Sumerian to mean the land between rivers, Mesopotamia refers to the valleys and plains in between and around the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, which are located in modern-day Iraq. Directly surrounding Mesopotamia, stretching as far west as Israel and Egypt, and all the way east to modern-day Iran, is the Fertile Crescent, named for the remarkable fertility of the land that made this region an ideal place for human civilization to prosper. It was in this region of the world that the first act of humanity's long performance on the world stage would play out. As people settled, different groups became more powerful. Kings and queens popped up in cities and city-states all across the region, and their fight to secure land and resources, as well as their position in history and with the gods, would define some 5,000 years of human history. And in many ways, this story is not over. Much of the current Middle Eastern political landscape, as is the case in most parts of the world, has its roots in these ancient civilizations, making studying these societies just as relevant today as it's ever been.
Dorothy, back to the gods. What's your favorite Mesopotamian myth?
Without a doubt, the epic of Gilgamesh. It is an epic story about a king who seeks immortality. Throughout his journey, he learns that true immortality is the actions and legacy he leaves behind.
Suren, the creative conifer, winking with straight out and simple drinking, donkey records over them it able tall presents sounds and were a young wing for ten wind of Lewis contrasts and literature.
It's amazing how these stories are still relevant thousands of years later.
Because of the long history of Mesopotamia and the many different people who lived there and controlled it, keeping track of all the different events and their significance can be difficult, even for dedicated scholars. And this confusion is often what pushes us away from trying to further understand these societies and the impact they've had on the world around us. As a result, it's important to lay out the order of events and to spend time grasping some of the overall trends in ancient Mesopotamian history before diving too deeply into any one civilization. This will provide more context when studying each society, making it easier to understand the importance and significance of each event.
To wrap up, what do you think is the most important thing Mesopotamia left us?
Wearing takes on its way can urge history and take of other civilizations that come out.
Their advances in engineering and social organization, without them we wouldn't have cities as we know them today.
And of course, it's mythology which continues to inspire writers, artists, and academics.
I agree with all of you. Well, that's all for today. Thanks for going us on this journey to the past. Thank you so much.
Thank you to our guest and to you for listening to us. See you in the next episode of Life History.
It all starts with Sumer. To begin with, it's important to remember that the story of ancient Mesopotamia, as it pertains to the development of human history, starts with Sumer. The Sumerians were an ancient, non-Semitic speaking group of people who lived in Mesopotamia since possibly the beginning of human existence. The first Sumerian city, Eridu, dates back to the 54th century BCE. It is considered by many to be one of, if not the first, city in the world, and it was where the ancient Sumerians chose the center of their civilization to be. Surrounding Eridu, the Sumerians would settle a number of other cities that would grow to be important political and commercial centers in the ancient world. Larsa, Sippar, Uruk, Kish, Ur, and Nippur, among others, would all grow into powerful city-states, and it was their alliance that brought neighboring cities closer together than they had ever been before. In addition to a sedentary lifestyle based on agriculture, other reasons the Sumerians are considered to be one of the first real, and therefore most important civilizations, is that they are believed to be some of the first people in the world who have had writing and language. The Sumerians were the first to use pictures for words, and they wrote them down on clay tablets. Many of the most important Sumerian city-states were settled by circa 3500 BCE, and over the course of the next 1,000 years, they united, albeit loosely, and grew to be a powerful civilization, using writing as well as other advancements, such as the wheel, to grow and develop economically, socially, and politically. Perhaps the pinnacle of early Sumerian history comes with the rise of King Gilgamesh in circa 2700 BCE. He was the king of the city of Uruk, and he was enshrined into Sumerian history thanks to the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest pieces of literature in human history. In the story, Gilgamesh goes on a series of adventures in hopes of attaining eternal glory, only to find out that no human can escape death. Interestingly, Gilgamesh, in the epic, visits a man named Utnapishtim, who was famous for having helped the Sumerians survive a massive flood sometime in their past. Many historians believe this reference to a flood is the same one that inspired the story of Noah's Ark, one of the most well-known stories in the Old Testament of the Bible. The arrival of the Akkadians, Elamites, Babylonians, and Assyrians. Another interesting part of the Epic of Gilgamesh is that it was written in Akkadian, not Sumerian. This at first seems strange, but at the time, the Akkadians, defined by their Semitic Akkadian language, were growing in numbers and influence. By 2330 BCE, King Sargon I of the Akkadians conquered the Sumerians as they marched throughout Mesopotamia, creating the world's first empire. 50 years of Akkadian rule came to an end in 2100 BCE, returning sovereignty to the Sumerians. And at this time, the ancient city of Ur was rebuilt. But this brief moment of independence would not last, as the Sumerians would shortly fall to the Elamites, the people who lived northeast of Mesopotamia. And the Elamites would give way to the Assyrians, who hailed from Assur and Nineveh on the banks of the Euphrates River. Over the course of the next 1500 years, the Assyrians would be the region's hegemon. Their large, powerful, and often terrifying armies would dominate from Egypt to Persia and beyond. But this dominance that started toward the end of the second millennium BCE was briefly interrupted by one of the most famous rulers of the ancient world, Hammurabi. Hammurabi was the king of Babylon, and he rose to power in 1781 BCE. His military advantage allowed him to take control of the kingdoms surrounding Babylon, and because of the growing kingdoms to the northwest of Assyria, with whom he was able to form an alliance, he was also able to take back significant amounts of territory that had only recently been conquered by the Assyrians.